Hi, you are on The Last Watch. I'm Tony DuShane. That's Bernard Meisler. Today, it's Jerry versus Louie.
The ultimate battle of good versus evil.
Yeah, I know. I hate Jerry Seinfeld. No, I'm kidding.
No. So we're talking. Yeah. We're talking about the very recent Hours, as they're called in the biz, released by both Jerry Seinfeld and Louis C.K. Coincidentally, they came out within like days of each other, maybe even on the same day. It came out about 2 weeks ago. The Jerry's on Netflix, and Louis, you still have to buy it for $5 off of his website, unless you happen to have certain interneting skills, which enable you to just find it elsewhere.
What's great about how we consume, visual stuff, how we consume TV and comedy right now is Louis C.K. is like going to the back of the store, behind the porn, and going, "Do you got the new Louis?"
Yeah. But Jerry's in the window. Jerry's in the window at the big poster, right? To bring people in. Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, we got the new Louis," but
yeah. But one thing before we get into it, I wanted to. And damn, my hair looks good today. I gotta say. You
got sexy hair today. Yeah.
I'm telling you. I need a shave. I need another shave here. But one thing I want to say.
Working for you.
Yeah, we'd be remiss not to, since we're speaking about comedy, not to mention the great Fred Willard, who just passed. A hero of mine, changed my life. I mean, because honestly, I'm a writer. This may sound ridiculous. I consider myself a comic, right? I've never done stand-up, but like I try to be funny. That's my thing. And seeing Fred Willard on Fernwood Tonight as Jerry Hubbard when I was a kid just like blew my mind. And then I, of course, loved him in all the Christopher Guest movies. Comedic genius, the ultimate, clueless buffoon. Nobody did it better than he. Yeah. So
here's to you, Fred, because he's in
the Fred. All right. R.I.P. Fred. Fred got into trouble, lost some work a few years ago when he was caught whacking off in a dirty movie theater, which I was surprised to know that they still had. Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear about that?
Oh, good for him. He's in his 80s whacking off in a movie theater.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be doing in my 80s.
And I know, God bless him. I know this was just a few years ago, and he lost a couple of TV gigs that he had at the time. And
that's a shame. But you should get a promotion. If your libido is that high in your 80s, you're willing to whip it out in public.
Yeah. And the joke that he said apparently on Jimmy Fallon, he went on to Jimmy Fallon afterwards, and they were discussing it, and Jimmy Fallon was like, "What movie were you watching? Was it The Firm?" He was like, "No, it was Get Shorty." So anyway, R.I.P. Fred Willard, Jerry Hubbard. Godspeed wherever you're heading. Tony thinks it's I don't know, whatever, So anyway, let's talk about Jerry versus Louie. I watched the Jerry show first. I didn't know it was even happening. I turned on my Netflix box, as I do all too frequently during these days of quarantine, and there it is, new Jerry Seinfeld special. So all right, I'll check this out. And
how was that intro? I remember Chris Rock when he did his like amazing, when Chris Rock kicked it out of the park, and I don't remember which one it was. It may have been the first one on HBO where he was walking. They followed the camera, and it was him walking, and then it was all that records of all the comedians that influenced him.
Oh, I don't remember that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, and then. But the Jerry Seinfeld one's my favorite.
Right.
Helicopter. He jumps.
Right. He's running. He's in a helicopter flying over the East River in Manhattan, and says to the pilot, "Are we going to be there soon?" He's like, "Oh, another 15 minutes." Like, "Well, I got to go." And he jumps out of the helicopter, and all of a sudden he's wearing a scuba outfit, and then they show him approaching the theater, and he strips off the scuba outfit, and he's, of course, wearing a nice suit and tie, which was a total homage to the great James Bond movie Goldfinger.
Really?
Do you remember Goldfinger? That was the intro to Goldfinger. Sean Connery is wearing a scuba outfit, and he comes out of the water, and he just strips it off and walks into a casino and he's wearing a tuxedo. You know, this was so awesome. Yeah. So anyway, but I liked it. I liked it. I chuckled. I thought it was funny, you know, but ultimately, I, especially for these uncertain times that we're going through now, to you know, copy every TV commercial, you know, that's on the air right now. I found Jerry's, you know, it's a little dated, but maybe it's what people need right now. I don't know. It's very, it's total comfort food, right? It's kind of interesting too, because they're both observational comics, but Jerry's just like kind of like the goofy little things in my daily life as a billionaire. What happens to me, you know, that, you know, like amusing things like, you know, whereas Louis is very, very angry and bitter.
Well, so I got to disagree with you on Jerry Seinfeld. He's
Okay.
and I just, you really kind of look at him. He really, I just look at him as like almost a philosopher, and the way he delivers. I mean, just look at his body language. It is like so choreographed. Even his hand on the mic. It's such the guy.
Yeah.
Is like.
Oh, no, I mean, he's a total pro. I mean, he's been doing this for 40 years and he's damn good at it, you know?
It's sexy. And then he gets right into, he got it right into, why are we friends with our friends?
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good.
That's actually a question where it's like, why do we let these people annoy us? Oh, because everyone's going to annoy us.
Right,
He said so much better, but it's just like, he came out the gate with that. And I feel like I was thinking of it like, what if this was a punk? What if I was going out to see a punk band? This would be the punk band that came out. There was this band called the Fleshies. They're still around. The minute the first chord hit, Johnny was in the crowd and stage dived, and the whole place was a ruckus. That's what Seinfeld feels like for comedy. The minute he hits that, we're going.
Yeah. I love the friend bit, though. It reminds me of something that my best friend, the conversation we had like 25 years ago. At the time, he was like, I'm going to go hang out with so-and-so. And I was like, why do you spend time with that jerk? He's awful. And he's like, I know, but we're friends. And it's like, what are you talking about? Don't you have friends who you can't stand? Like, what about your friend so-and-so? And I was like, well, okay, point taken. You know, I mean, so I'm sure there are many of my friends who feel the same way about me, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I was laughing about the part when he's talking about about very interesting the way that Jerry was talking about women. It was very innocuous, talking about they'll object to your tone, and you know, wives talk like this when they're mad at you. And I was laughing, and my wife was in the room, and she looked at me like, "What are you laughing at that for?" And I was like,
"Oh, really?
It's funny because it's true, honey."
Yeah.
But again, I was going to say these guys are both observational comics, which maybe I suppose, you know, almost all comics are these days, since, you know, the days of George Carlin and Richard Pryor. But
I'm going to throw this out there. Both Louis and Jerry, both of those specials were George Carlin good.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. They were both very good. Again, what I want to say is it's kind of interesting how different their styles are in their two different generations. Jerry's 63, Louis 53. Yeah. And Jerry's still kind of riding that sort of George, more like a 70s, he's more like a 70s kind of comic, where Louis is very much like a 90s alt comic. No lines are sacred. I can cross any line. I don't care who gets offended. I think shock and absurdism. Yeah.
Like even the it really sucks that they leaked some of the stuff he was working on with the school shooting.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God! If he would have stuck with that, but some idiot leaked it. And leaked it when he was still working on the material, and I feel there was a really strong joke there, but he would have to really work it, and maybe there was no strong joke. I think he crafts to pull you in, especially when he's talking about the handicapped person, which
Yeah, I mean,
the punchline to that, I don't even want to say it because the punchline's so good. But it shows the hypocrisy of our minds and
yeah, absolutely. And I think that was, well, that's a good point. I think that was the uh, uh, maybe the theme of Jerry Seinfeld isn't everything just kind of silly? Look at the way we live. Look at what we, whereas Louis is more like, you're a bunch of fucking hypocrites. I mean, the Louis thing. So let's just talk about, let's talk about the 4,000-pound pink elephant in the room, or whatever you want to call it. Louis is not quite as popular as he was a few years ago. He had a couple of things that put him in the news, and it wasn't a good look. I mean, I'm not going to defend his behavior or make any excuses for his behavior. He's a comic. Comics are sick weirdos, and he's a perv. But that does not affect his art. And I'm gonna contradict myself for a second too. When that story first broke, so yeah, I'm not even gonna repeat what it was in case, if you don't know by now, I don't know why you've been watching this, but I remember I went back and watched. Yeah, I went back and watched some of his older specials, and there were a couple of things that he said in there. You know, he was talking about jacking off, and it was just like, oh, yeah, that didn't make me feel very good when I'm watching this now, you know? So, I mean, I went into it with, you know, some apprehension. So it's like, what is he going to talk about? But I really appreciate the way he was just incredibly angry and defensive, you know, kind of like the way Pryor used to be. Pryor was really angry, right? And that's the fuel for comedy.
It shouldn't be blacklisted. People don't understand that. This is what even drives me. I'll even bring in another pink elephant. Woody Allen. I read Woody Allen's autobiography. You know, I lost friends on social media because I just posted it, and they're like, why are you reading a pedophile? I'm like, are you researching anything other than the tabloids? Really? It's just,
I know it's unfortunate, and it just goes about Woody. The only thing I'll say about Woody is that, you know, he was accused by his daughter, and then Ronan Farrow fell on that side of the argument, and then one of his other kids, a couple of his other kids, like there was an op-ed published a few years ago, which didn't get nearly the press
because we're in the weirdest media cycle.
Yeah,
it drives me nuts, even with the coronavirus, where everything has to be a partisan thing. Right. Oh, you're on that side, we're going to go there. Right. You're on that side, we're going to go there.
But it was also,
Ray doesn't make money.
Yeah, but it's also the classic thing. I mean, his kid wrote an op-ed where he basically said, my father's great. He never did anything like this ever to me or any of my other brothers and sisters. But it was, you know, it was a man doesn't bite dog story, you know, so it didn't get the attention as the, you know, whatever.
Read the book. Mia Farrow is an abusive bitch. She deserves so much more flack than
Woody. But you know, and again, they're both, you know, remember the old joke, the man walks into a psychiatrist's office wearing nothing but saran wrap, and the psychiatrist looks at him and says, well, I can clearly see your nuts. Okay. So, anyway, they're both.
I remember the old joke. That's right.
From what I've heard and read and seen, they're both wackos, and they're like as many artists are, and especially as many artists who become very, very rich and famous, and they can indulge in all their weirdest whims and fantasies or whatever. It can lead down a nasty road. But anyway, I don't care. It's the old thing about separating an artist from their art, you know.
And it's okay to be offended. You know, just, oh yeah, that guy offends me. Okay, then don't hang out with him. Don't listen to him.
Don't watch his movies if it bothers you.
Everyone wants everyone else to be equally offended, and that's what's driving.
And how dare you? And you know, but it's like, look, what are we supposed to not like? You know, when there's a Picasso painting, we should not look at it when we're in a museum because he was awful. You know,
he was kicked out of his hometown for painting nude 12-year-old girls in the park.
Yeah, he was just about as bad as it gets. Or John Lennon was a wife beater and a drunk, and so we should not listen to Beatles songs. Or
you also have to find out what the wife said.
Yeah, Yeah,
No,
but at any rate, I think it's.
that's like that was a terrible. That was a terrible.
But I think
I love how you brushed it off. You're like, oh, Jesus.
yeah,
Really?
yeah. I won't say anything about that. But it's just, I let the arts. I let the art speak for itself.
Yeah.
That's just, and again, that's my philosophy about it. If other people are disgusted by what Louis did, which was awful, I mean, it was not nearly. Again, there's a spectrum. It was worse than what Aziz Ansari did, but it was not nearly as bad as what Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby
Right.
did,
And
right?
it's nothing I would ever even think of doing in my life. I mean,
Well,
it's
again, I mean, and
not,
I love that he addressed it in the show. But first he goes out. First he insults Muslims, Jews, Christians. He makes a joke about Jesus on the cross. He insults the physically handicapped. He insults the mentally handicapped. There are no sacred cows. He will not go. And then he ends up talking about his thing, and he's just like, and I thought what he said was kind of great. He's just like, look, everybody's got a thing.
yeah.
Problem for me is now everybody knows what my thing is. And I thought that was hilarious. He said, like, even Barack Obama knows what my thing is. And he's like, I'm Barack Obama reading the news. Oh, Louis C.K., good Lord. I thought, but I thought, again, the Jerry thing was funny. I laughed. The Louis thing, I was dying. I gotta say, I was dying. My jaw, it had that right combination of like, just being really funny, but like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. My jaw was dropping. Kind of reminded me of like, the wrestling scene from Borat or something like that. When, I saw that in the movie theater and was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe, and it helped too. I was surrounded by other people and it was just like, this is so fucked up. I can't believe I'm watching this. And that's how I felt about a lot of the Louis special.
The what was I was gonna mention something about that, but yeah. Oh yeah, that's it with Louis. I kind of like the first like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I was going, well, that's funny, and then he's like someone who kind of like you start out, you're like, all right, and then you're on for the ride, and then he just starts throwing the punches.
Yeah, yeah.
That's I was just like, oh my God, it's almost like you got to stay with him for about 10 minutes, and then.
Yeah, and also again, just like you were saying about Jerry, who's a consummate pro. I mean, he had the audience in his hands the whole show. But Louis also, I mean, that piece was so well crafted, and again, I think part of that is because the other thing I gotta say is one of the reasons I admire the guy is just like his work ethic is insane. I mean, what he was doing before this event for 10 years, he had a TV show that he wrote, directed, and edited on his Mac, like in his spare time before putting out a fresh hour every year. Most people put out an hour every 3 years. He was doing an hour every year, plus the TV show. Plus he was doing some small parts in movies. He was great in American Hustle.
That's right. He was really good.
He was really good. And one of the better comedians turned actors, as far as I'm concerned. He's up there with Odenkirk. And then he did Horace and Pete, which was like this sort of, Tennessee Williams-esque 7-hour theater piece, basically. It was filmed, it was basically, it all takes place in like 1 or 2 rooms, I think. There was a kitchen and the bar, and that was it. And a bunch of like characters. It was, it was like Long Day's Journey into Night or something like that. It was brilliant, I thought, and not flawless, not without its weak moments, but just as a whole, it was just amazing. That's
ballsy. I mean, totally ballsy, because he's going against type and he's going against what's being expected.
Right. So anyway, he was doing that like crazy, and then all of a sudden he had to disappear.
Yeah.
For a couple of years. So this hour that he does is the culmination of, instead of like him being distracted with all these other things and doing an hour a year, he spent 3 years on this, and it shows. I thought, I think it's the best thing he's ever done.
And what he's done for television with it, because he was the one that took like the huge pay cut to get the first couple seasons of Louis going, and
Mhm.
it was the budget for each episode was $200,000. He couldn't even pay himself, and then
Mm.
it got revving, and he was doing a very quiet. He started to do some quiet stuff that usually you wouldn't see on TV. It would go slower, and then
Right.
he produced Better Things with Pamela Adlon.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then Atlanta came out with Donald Glover, and I don't think FX would have grabbed Atlanta unless
Right.
they had the Louis C.K. and Better Things. And then they went, oh, okay, this formula works. It
Right.
doesn't have to be 4 laughs a minute.
Yeah, and he's another genius too. Donald Glover is
Oh
brilliant. But that reminds me. I remember hearing that. So that's how Louis got that TV show. Was basically he said, "I'll work for nothing, right? Just give me a few bucks and give me a time slot, and I'll make this TV show for you." And they're like, "Okay."
yeah. And
And
no notes and no final cut. He asked for more money, and they're like, we'll give you notes. And he's like, oh no, forget it. I'll take the smaller cut. So.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know how many seasons there were, like 3, but it was also an interesting show because it's Louis.
There's more. Season 4 actually
Season
had
4. Okay.
the elevator arc. I don't know if you ever watched that. There was like
yeah.
episodes about the elevator and his romance with
Pamela Adlon, wasn't it? Or
no, it was the woman from Hungary who is.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, no, I saw that.
Yeah.
That was again a fantastic show, and it similar to Atlanta, and that it wasn't really a comedy. You're kind of expecting it was sometimes very funny, but it wasn't a comedy. So it was kind of interesting. I heard something interesting about Atlanta too, which is that Donald Glover, what he did was he shot the first 3 episodes, which if you go back and watch them are structured more like a classic sitcom. It's got like his, whatever, the goofy friend who comes in, and what's his name? The guy who was in Sorry to Bother You, the actor.
He's got a great name, and I can't remember it right now.
Yeah. But you know who I'm talking about. Who I'm talking about. If you haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, go watch it right now. It's fantastic.
Oh, if you haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, don't even subscribe to Sensitive Skin. We don't want you.
If you haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, you're not watching this right now. So why am I even talking to you? Yeah. But anyway, he played that trick. He shot 3 episodes and said, "Here's my show," and then they greenlit it, and then he went off, and it got weird, right? And got and by the time he was starting to get critical raves, they're like, "Okay, you can do another one," So.
And they had to shut it down because of the pandemic.
I know. It's why are actors and film crews not considered essential workers? I don't know. We need them more than ever.
I think Louis taped that as fast as possible because he knew the pandemic was coming down. So I think he was supposed to tape that in Boston, and I had tickets for the Boston show. So I think it was all moving toward a taping in Boston. And he went, oh shit, this might be my last chance to get it for a while. And I think they taped it, and then they realized, okay, we got to cut this one because this is the one.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because now that you mention it, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he sort of obliquely mentioned that, like, yeah, it's getting a little weird out there or something like that. So this is probably, I should have looked it up, but if I'm guessing, it was probably taped like, 2 weeks before the lockdown started, something like that, where people were still going to theaters, even though I was questioning people still going to movie theaters and sporting events, in the days right before the lockdown happened. But
yeah, and I know we should probably look that up and be definitive about it. But I think he just went, you know what? Let's make this a production because it may be our last shot.
Yeah.
And he's probably through,
So anyway, I don't know. Do we have anything more to say? Are we ready to wrap this baby up?
All I want to say is, Bernard, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise. So I think we've got thumbs up, double thumbs up.
Double
Jerry
thumbs
and Louis. Although I thought the Jerry thing was very good. I thought the Louis thing was fantastic. So,
and I like them both equally for who they are, but I just can't believe how much Seinfeld's been bashed. Like even in USA Today, all the reviews are beating the shit out of him.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
What are you guys not looking at?
Yeah,
like,
he's Jerry Seinfeld, and he's doing Jerry Seinfeld. So you know, yeah.
They expect him to be Whoopi Goldberg or something all of a sudden. It's just like,
yeah. I don't know. I was glad to see it. It was good to,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So tune in next week when we'll be discussing, I don't know, some other TV show.
That one thing we said we weren't going to say, but you'll find out.
You'll find out. Tune in next week. All right. Goodbye. See you, Tony.
Goodbye, Bernard.